Welcome, Annick, to this conversation about co-creating the third attractor. And I was just thinking I will break my pattern today, because normally I ask people to describe how they understand the third attractor. And today I want to do something else, because on your website, you have this beautiful quote by Wangari Maathai. And she is saying, in the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now. And when I read this, I thought, this is what we mean when we say, can we co-create the third attractor? Can we co-create this new consciousness? Can we co-create this new culture? And it's almost like just a different framing of what we mean in these conversations that I'm having with many people about this question: can we co-create this new? And if yes, how do we co-create it? And that's what I'm curious about to hear from you. How do you think we can raise consciousness and culture?
Yeah, beautiful questions to start with. Straight to the point. Yeah, let me see where to get started here. Yeah, I actually hadn't heard that quote by Wangari Maathai myself for a while, because I put it on the website a while back, and it's indeed a beautiful quote, and I feel it's even more true today, right? I feel this sense of urgency and also despair is growing.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of people for a long time who felt that this whole economic system and this way we understand our world is kind of out of alignment with what really is. But that has only have become more and more and more and more obvious throughout the years. And I think we are maybe finally reaching a point where there's really no way around that conclusion anymore. And so I keep on hearing stories of, yeah, maybe unlikely people or unlikely organizations now embarking on, yeah, new explorations of indeed, how can we come to something new? Because the current thing is dying, right? It is dying a painful death. Is facing yeah, very disturbing and difficult and yeah, I think that the shift to the mainstream increasingly starting to recognize is really happening, and that creates a lot of openness, right?
Yeah.
It is often also people who have gone on a personal growth growth journey. It is our despair, our pain, our fed upness with how our life is going, with business as usual, that makes us ready for something new. So that's the first thing that comes to me also upon hearing that quote again is, yeah, that I do have this sense, and I've had this for a long time, but growing sense and coming to a culmination point now that we really are at the threshold of something new emerging, and that we are, yeah, at the same time just witnessing this old thing kind of failing and collapsing. And
Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. That is this feeling. And
I hope it's true.
we, yeah, exactly. I hope it's true too. And when I hear you talk, it's always this question that has come up in many of my conversations. You say something new seems to be emerging, and at the same time there is also this call for participation. In a way, I feel like
Yeah.
we are called to
Yeah.
co-create, no?
Yes. Yes.
And what does that mean? How do we co-create? how do we best contribute to what seems to want to emerge? Or even if we don't believe it's emerging yet, what we can all agree is what we see now, it's not sustainable. We
No.
cannot go on like this, no?
Yes.
So what does it need?
But that's one consensus. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that is also kind of the amazing gift of living at this time, however difficult and challenging it also is. I think that indeed we can actually, I believe deeply, we can co-create the new and we can be part of it. And this is, in my own feelings, I get sometimes thrown around between kind of taking in the suffering of the world and just, really having my heart ache uh, for what is happening and what is being lost and the beauty of what could be and also just yeah the immense pain that people are going through everywhere and then at the same time there's this whole other side to it where yeah I think I feel myself to be in a position and I think many of us are that we can actually start to craft a new path, start to
Hmm.
forge a new path forward. And we do this through, yeah, through experimentation. We do this through our personal growth paths. I'm a big believer in, yeah, in dialogue, generative dialogue,
Yeah.
specific practices that I work with that I'm happy to tell you more about. But yeah, so I think that's another amazing thing of this time. We actually have, it's almost like on the one hand, it all needs to emerge, and on the other hand, it's all here already, right? We
Hmm.
have so many, um, yeah, we have so many pathways that we know they work, and many of them are actually, shockingly simple. And so, yeah, anyway, a lot more to say about that, but
No, no, I would love to hear a little more about your approaches. You speak about dialogue work. That's something that I'm very interested in because we are doing a lot of dialogue work too. So I'm very curious where there is an overlap and what I can learn from what you are doing when you speak about dialogue work.
yes. Yeah, so my major work is around worldviews. And so I'd also love to talk more about that. But
Hmm.
actually, in all the worldview work and also doing kind of worldview work with students, where we're really, confronted students and taught, ideas about worldviews, theories, research, let them have to make the worldview tests and then put them in dialogue because this is what quite soon started to notice that this was actually the easiest entrance point I find for yeah if you want to call it consciousness transformation or any form of more deeper more meaningful deeper change. Dialogue in my eyes is almost like the easiest entrance in,
Hmm.
and this is, I think, partially because this is something we all do, right? We all talk a bunch of the day, even, and so I like to work with a practice that I call the stream of consciousness dialogue practice,
Hmm.
where we use generally a series of prompts, and so a prompt is a piece of a sentence that is carefully crafted and thought through, piece of a sentence
Hmm.
that the speaker repeats and then completes, stream of consciousness style. So you get this prompt that could be, for example, what is most alive for me right now is, and so as a speaker, I would repeat that sentence. What is most alive for me right now? And then I would just allow myself to speak, whatever comes, for
Yeah.
a fixed set of time, for example, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And you generally do this in pairs. You can also do it in slightly bigger groups, but I love the pair for intimacy
Mm-hmm.
and trust
Hmm.
building.
Hmm.
Very effective. So then the speaker does this speaking process using the prompt, following the stream of consciousness, really kind of following the flow of thought and experience as it arises in the moment,
Yeah.
rather than trying to craft a coherent story or something. And the listener is just instructed to purely listen, listen.
Yeah.
and to listen from a place of wanting to understand and neutrality or even positive regard.
Yeah.
And then you shift. And this way you work yourself through a series of prompts, and this could be around any topic. And you can design the prompt such that the pair explores, different aspects, different dimensions of this topic. And I also like to build in a little bit of an aspirational arc that you build towards. And so you explore these different dimensions, almost like, what your better angels would whisper into your ear,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
a little bit uplifting and aspirational. And
And are you doing this? Is very interesting. Are you doing this also for controversial topics or across worldviews, like as a tool for worldviews to start to understand each other better?
we do this a little bit. Right now, I have the problem that people that come to our courses are often self-selected, or I work a lot with Utrecht University, or we
Yeah.
are working with students within a course, but then still they have like, they feel
Same worldview kind of.
a little bit at least, or
Yeah.
there's quite a lot of shared understanding because we all chose this, right, this study
Yeah.
direction. So there's some of that. I am really eager to work with it in deeply polarized contexts, and I'm developing research proposals and for that, but I'm still working on it. But from what I've seen, I'm optimistic about that
Hmm.
it can do something for a number of reasons actually, but because just magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I can really imagine that. And because I'm very interested in the question, because I think one of the challenges that we have today is that so many different worldviews exist
Yes,
in parallel in the world today, many more than ever have existed in parallel, because
absolutely. Yeah,
like 100 or 1,000 years ago it was kind of the same worldviews that
yeah, totally.
were inhabited.
Yeah,
So
and this is
and
an underestimated problem or overlooked problem,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because this mere existence of these different worldviews does something with us. And it
Yeah.
actually trigger and activate us because we are inclined to protect our worldviews. And
Yes, exactly. And then you have these people that kind of go towards integral consciousness, integral worldview, and there is a danger there that we isolate ourselves again from all other worldviews, whereas real integral that would transcend and include would actually transcend and include all the worldviews. But this is theoretically sound, but practically still very, very difficult. Looks like, feels like, because you see these clashes everywhere between the different worldviews. And
every
if we aspire to have change that can affect the whole world or
yeah,
big parts of the world, we need to find ways to bridge between the worldviews. No.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And this clashes that we see everywhere, they obstruct us to basically tackle any challenge humanity is facing, right? We don't get ahead on, mental health or climate change or the biodiversity crisis or the decay of democracy, as long as we are in these, cultural wars. Huh?
Yeah.
James Davison Hunter called this the culture wars. And so, yeah, we are culturally at war, also physically, of course, in certain parts of the world, but even in countries where we still have peace, we are culturally at war
Yeah.
with each other. And I think, like, also when I look, for example, at the climate movement, I find that there's not enough understanding yet or focus on how crucial this is. We are not going to make any progress on climate change, and that's just one example, as long as we don't find a way through this, hyperpolarization or however you want to call it.
Yeah. 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 No,
And
exactly.
so it's incredibly urgent.
Yeah, it is. And then something that is kind of keeping me busy in my mind is also the question. You beautifully described how your dialogue practice works, and you call it stream of consciousness. And I can imagine that this creates a space where heightened consciousness, awakened consciousness arises, and therefore it's so beautiful and has so much potential. And we have a similar practice that we do more in groups, where we start with listening and just only talk when anybody is called to talk, and then you have a group conversation that kind of creates the same field of heightened consciousness, where so much more is possible, and where the ego need of having to be seen disappears into the collective, but without the individual skill set, or what each individual brings to the table disappears. So it's this combination in this higher consciousness. You can be fully yourself and fully integrated in this shared consciousness, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And now comes the but that I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you about,
Yeah.
because this is a beautiful practice. It's almost like meditation, where we go into being. But then to use this same practice to solve polarities is
Mhm.
so much more difficult. It's so much more challenging, because the moment when the topic that you bring into such a consciousness is a little bit more edgy, and people have a little stronger identities around it, it looks like the ego
Yeah.
identification, or the identification comes front and center again, and then it creates the clashes.
Yeah. Yeah. You want my thoughts on that, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really, I mean, I'm thrilled you're talking about this, because this is really what I think so much about. So I recently dove into the literature around polarization again, and depolarization intervention. So there's a whole field, huh, where they study
Mm,
how can we address polarization. And I came away kind of, diving into the literature again, thinking that we haven't really understood this problem at the level where it needs to be understood. There's still a somewhat superficial understanding. So the idea is still around partisan animosity, the idea that we basically don't like each other enough. Whereas where I think we need to go is it, a true understanding that there are worldviews at stake here. And a worldview fulfills an existential function for us as individuals. So our worldviews are our meaning-making frameworks, right? We use
mhm,
them to make sense of reality. And yeah, we can easily say that, but this actually means a lot. Like, we cannot go through life without having, a framework that guides us, that orients us, that helps us decide what is true and what is not, what
mhm,
is relevant and what is not, right? What is of value and what is not. We make these decisions all day long, and yet we very little think about the kind of larger frameworks and the worldviews that make all these decisions make some sense. And so I love this idea of Max Weber, that our worldviews give us a sense of meaning making satisfaction. And
mm.
give us a sense that life is somehow meaningful, right? We can make
Yeah.
sense of it. It is manageable because of that. And there's a kind of a stability and a continuity that we have through that. And so when our worldviews are under threat, it's like this really important function is threatened for us.
Yeah.
None of this happens really consciously, but there's been really interesting studies that have shown that when you confront people with what you could call worldview threatening information, or for example, people that display a completely different worldview, completely different value set, that for most people, their heart rate will go up. And so
Mm,
heart rate is an index of threat, right? So we actually have on the nervous system level, we have a threat response. And this is also the point that you brought up before about, we have not been in a situation before, I believe, in the world where we were so frequently and so pervasively confronted with different worldviews and thus with worldview threat.
Yeah, yeah.
Mere existence of somebody who has a completely different understanding, in some sense, like implicitly challenges our understanding. If you think so differently, well, maybe how I understand it is not quite right. And so I think we have not fully appreciated yet that, in this globalized world that we live in, that people are continuously challenged in their worldviews and threatened in their worldviews, and this put up all the defensive responses. And one of the ways, and the research has also shown this in really powerful ways, that people deal with that is to prejudice. If I just decide that other group that thinks that way is insane or is evil, I don't have to deal with it. That's a
Hmm.
coping mechanism.
Hmm.
And so this creates all the partisan animosity and the hostility, the divisiveness, but also the hate almost between groups. And so I come away believing that we really need a new skill set for a worldview plural world. And what we need is um, to learn to manage the sense of worldview threat, to kind of learn to breathe through the sense of threat and actually start to embrace it. And this is really in a nutshell, and start to embrace it as a growth opportunity. And that's, of course, a whole process. So I'm saying that very briefly now, but that's, yeah, there's much more. I don't want to talk too long.
No,
So,
no, it's
yeah,
it's perfect. It all makes so much sense, and I really agree. It needs a new skill set, and where I am with this thought is that what we need to develop is also a skill of holding this complexity of the different worldviews,
yes,
simply holding it
yes,
without needing and wanting it to be solved right away.
yeah,
Like in in the presentation I gave at Icon conference, I was talking about 13 paradoxes I have identified
mm,
in my third attractor conversations. And without going into details, the main message there was that I consciously choose to call them paradoxes and not polarities, because I feel like there is a power in learning to actually hold paradoxes for real. It's a
yes,
paradox, and I hold it in myself, and I don't need to resolve it right away. And that expands your whole inner being, and the way you can deal with all these paradoxes and polarities in the real world. And it's a real skill set.
yes. Yeah, and that's beautiful because so paradox is actually what it appears to be a contradiction, right? It is an apparent contradiction, right? So
Yeah.
a paradox looks like a polarity, but it turns out to be on a deeper level actually different expressions of the same unity.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a consciousness shift to start to see also, I think, like, yeah, I mean, we are dealing with these big polarities in society right now, but the astute observer sees that the sides flip, like left and right. Like there's been little political observers, for example, who've said like, wow, like left and right have shifted in terms of
Hmm.
attitudes and positions. And so there's these weird shifts. There's the way that while they fight each other, they actually mirror each other. They look like each other. And so I think when we zoom out and when we look at all of that, we see that, yeah, something else is going on. It is not actually on the level of this fight. And it is
Yeah.
indeed starting to recognize that, yeah, maybe it is not this polarity and the one winning from the other. And this is like, if you look at the political
Exactly. That
fight,
you can move it in the middle and then it's solved, because often you can't.
or moved in the middle, or I think a lot of it is also about just like winning from each other, right?
Yes, yes,
Right
yeah,
wants to defeat left and left wants to defeat right.
yeah,
And both of these are not viable paths and will not happen,
yeah,
will not
yeah,
work. And so there's a maybe that's your third attraction, but there's a third way,
yeah,
right? Where it's not one or the other, but where, yeah, we start to view all these issues on another level, and we
yeah,
recognize that these are ultimately not polarities, right? It is not science or spirituality. It is not
yes.
day or night or left or right or rationality or intuition. Um, what are more important paradoxes? Spirit or matter? Uh,
Yeah, or individuality and
yeah,
collective
community.
is a good one too.
Yeah,
That everybody is kind of juggling. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And so, and I think this also, of course, was the Jungian insight, right? That the process of individuation comes through holding, yeah, almost like stretched, holding both. And
mm-hmm.
in that process, it becomes maybe very mystical when we talk about it in these terms, but I think there's something very real. And if we look at the larger events, also politically, yeah, kind of on the world stage, where, yeah, actually we're being guided this direction, or being guided, this is happening, right?
This is happening. Yeah,
Yeah, we are struggling with these really profound polarities, and on that level, there does not appear to be a way out.
yeah.
And indeed, what you're saying, the consensus, the kind of like, yeah, just go in the middle, it doesn't seem to be working either.
No,
And so, what is another pathway? And yeah,
I'm curious if you have developed or are working with practices to teach people or help people to be able to hold this kind of bigger context, this higher complexity. Is that something that is part of your work?
I would say yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we've developed this program actually in collaboration with Utrecht University that we call the Worldview Journey. And it's
Yeah,
kind of, and it's really cool because it's actually research based. We tested this with students, we did educational design research, we evaluated, we published about it. But it's a pretty profound process where yeah, where actually many things happen, but one of that is that students even just learn about the different worldviews. And then in this kind of dialogue format that I described before, reflect on their own worldview, also like
yeah,
biographically, and have this conversation with a peer where they're suddenly talking about, the worldview they grew up with and how it changed throughout their lives and what worldview they identify with right now and how they have maybe how they understand other worldviews differently. And they have this whole like lengthy conversation. And yeah, even from this was like they had to do a couple of hours of homework, watching some lecture videos, and that we had pre-recorded and doing the worldview test online that comes out of my research. And then we had a live session of, I think, 3 hours. And then students came out in their evaluation saying things like, wow, I really see my own worldview now. And I really understand that I thought my perspective was the only right one, but I now really see that we become wiser when we draw on more perspectives or when
yeah.
we are more, it's like comment after comment that made me feel like, wow, this is really promising. So it's a simplified form, but it's a first way to start to bring some awareness to all these different worldviews that currently exist on the planet. And we just work with 4 worldviews, so it's not exhaustive, but it already gives a pretty good basic orientation.
From traditional up like traditional modern, postmodern, and integral.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
call it integrative, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is
Mm-hmm.
basically, yeah. And it gives you, I think that already, and some students also describe it as such, can give them a really like aha erlebnis kind of an
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
Oh wow, now some things start to make sense. And I often also say to students, like, start looking at the news and see how different worldviews, right, are fighting with one another. Yeah, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
talk about climate change or immigrants. You see, when you get this lens, things start to make sense on another level.
absolutely. And I also heard you say a few minutes before that you probably mainly work with postmodern to integrative students. Did I hear that right? So my question is, or what would be very interesting, and I heard you say that you will try to do that, to actually find real,
Yeah,
deeply em- embodied traditional
yeah,
Muslim, and have the conversation between a traditional Muslim, a traditional Jew, and a postmodern
yes,
Dutch woman,
yeah,
and then see
yeah.
what happens. No?
Yes, well, this is the most interesting thing, and yeah. So for example, we did this within sustainability education. So we indeed had a majority postmodern integrative worldviews, although we had big groups. So in almost any group, there were also some traditionals and some
Yeah,
moderns, and
yeah,
so there was genuinely a mix. But also, like a lot of out of these stream of consciousness long dialogues, a lot of students came out and say like, "Oh, I so want to talk with somebody from a really different worldview." And even just that
yeah,
longing, that desire, I found so, yeah, hope giving, that like genuine curiosity
yeah,
about how other people think
yeah,
is one of the values that I felt emerging, where that gave me hope. Like, yeah, this is this is a good direction. And yeah, I mean, my fingers are itching, or how do you say that? I'm
yeah,
eager
yeah.
to do that work of, and undoubtedly it is going to be more challenging, but there are also really hopeful signs. Like some things kind of work across the board.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
example, been this really interesting study that I keep on telling people about, where um, where they investigated or examined the effects of what they call receiving high quality listening. So they made a group and a control group.
Yeah.
So a research group and a control group, where the research group received high quality listening from really people who were
Hmm.
trained to offer this high quality listening. So listening with full attention, with high regard, kind of with
Yeah.
verbal, how do you say that? Non-verbal cues that signal deep
Hmm.
listening. And then they had a control group and they just received kind of average bad listening or something. And then it showed that the people who received this high quality listening depolarized in their attitudes, became kind of less
Oh,
extreme in their attitudes. And how the researchers theorized this was through a mechanism of basically, when people receive high quality listening, they talked about positivity resonance. There's some sense of
yeah,
connection
yeah,
that just gets established through that listening. And this creates a sense of safety, and then
yeah,
this safety makes it possible to examine our own ideas in a more undefended way. Instead of our usual kind of defensive stance, we feel now safe. And so suddenly we are able to actually have a genuine second thought about our own opinions. And that then resulted in just kind of less extreme opinions.
that
And so I
makes
found
so
that,
much sense. Yeah,
yeah, I found that such hope giving. And
yeah, yeah,
there's also, to me, such a beauty because it's so simple, right? So often we think of these big problems and we search for complex solutions, but I find most hope in these super simple things.
yeah,
It's like we can move mountains almost with listening.
yeah. No, absolutely. I do believe that it all starts with listening. In in the teaching I was embedded in for many years, our teacher Andrew Cohen always encouraged us to listen and respond. Like it was always like this deep listening and then responding from that depth. Because without the responding, you kind of can pull back, and
Yeah.
then you are just a witness. And we don't want to be just a witness, we want to be the participant. No?
Yes.
So this deep listening and responding is that's for me kind of the magic formula for for almost everything.
Yes. And it's actually simple, right?
Yeah,
It's but we're just not used to do it. And I also find this with students when they do this the first time, they're like awkward. But then halfway through the conversation, or and sometimes they describe this later in their evaluations. They say, "Oh, I was awkward and I was scared in the beginning, but then I realized this was like super interesting conversation, and I
yeah,
felt I got to know the other person in a way that, almost like a deep friend, or." And it's just like, that's just one conversation.
yeah. And I have a theory why listening works so well. I think it has a lot to do that when we deeply listen, we don't think,
Yes. Yeah.
which is kind of amazing. And when both dialogue partners just listen and don't think, this natural flow of consciousness that you are pointing to can actually happen because it's not obstructed by our normal thinking patterns, not
Yeah.
obstructed by everything that we think we already know. And we
Yeah.
can actually respond from the deepest part of who we are.
Yeah. Like think anew and think from a different
Yeah,
place. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Totally. And a lot of people also say this, that because in this dialogue structure, you're not allowed to respond, not initially,
yeah.
right? This time is of the other person. And a lot of people actually describe that that gives them some kind of freedom because they realize, oh, normally I'm already thinking about what I'm going to say in return.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And now I'm just listening. And that's exactly, I'm not thinking anymore. I'm actually listening to this other person. And then something happens.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we actually build connection. We also become more curious about the other person and often even more appreciative.
yeah, yeah,
So it really builds relationships. It
yeah,
builds trust. It builds connection.
yeah. No, that's beautiful. And it's also something it feels like that is actually that could be possible through worldviews. It's not something that is worldview dependent, no. Just as
No.
a practice.
Yes, and of course they're very, currently in society, they're very overheated situations where not everyone will commit to listening, to sitting down, and so there is limitations in that sense. But I'm of the belief that when you get people to actually commit to the practice and also hang in there for a little bit. Some people initially resist. I recently worked with a group and there was one man and it was like after the first practice was like, no, I don't like this format. I want to talk back and da 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 da. And I was like, yeah, 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 hang in there. And the second session, he said like, yeah, I don't like the question, but the format actually works well. And I thought by myself, like, yeah, that was progress.
Yeah,
Something
sure.
happens. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time. This is something
Yeah,
we need to practice and grow into.
yeah, yeah,
But many people discover that they really so enjoy to be listened to in a deeper way, as well as actually listening to another person in a deeper way.
yeah.
And that's powerful. Yeah.
No, it is. So if we come back to our question, how we create a better future, what else is needed? Let's assume we kind of master this listening skill. What else is needed? I'm especially also interested in the question, or I'm curious what you think. Do we need new big narratives? Because many of the worldviews have been created through narratives that we tell each other that we are aligned with. Do you think we need new big narratives, or what are your thoughts about narratives moving forward?
Well, worldview is kind of a narrative, right? It is a worldview is a story of how the world works, how it operates, what is significant, what we're here for. Um, so in that sense, yeah, I think. Yeah, I think we always operate through stories and narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they are our meaning, right? We have these interpretive frameworks and um, yeah, it is hard to make sense of reality without those. It's almost like, when I only need to lift one eyebrow and there's some kind of interpretation for the person who's looking at me. I think
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
right, we are meaning-making creatures. So, so in that sense, the narratives are with us. I also think that the sort of one of the core premises of the postmodern worldview, right, the end end to the big narratives and all overarching stories are oppressive and
Yeah,
exploitative and to be deconstructed, I think have proven to be very, very problematic and destructive in
yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
Right? I do think that we can connect the meaning crisis that we see. We can connect the post-truth crisis that we see, the sense that we have no shared reality anymore, the extreme polarization
Mm-hmm.
to some degree, that we can connect those with kind of the large-scale emergence of the postmodern worldview. And so I do believe, yeah, I do believe we need to go beyond that.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have a sense for how the integrative narrative sounds like, looks like, smells like, walks like in a very narrative kind of way?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's some kind of almost like more abstract philosophical ideas that you could talk
Mm-hmm.
about, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that science and spirituality are ultimately two sides of the same coin, and that. So I think
Yeah.
there's that kind of integrative worldview where we start to understand this whole reality differently, not in the traditional transcendental religious sense, not in the modernist objectivist more kind of scientific rational sense, not in the constructivist postmodern sense, but more of a um, yeah, I guess a more evolutionary sense that we are expressions of a larger intelligent force expressing itself through us. We are all, coming through consciousness or coming to consciousness. So for me, it has definitely a strong spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better word, uh, sensibility. But I also think there's a lot of openness to it. So
Yeah.
it is, I think, and also if you think about our global world right now, and yeah, so in the first place, we don't need to all ascribe to the same narrative. That's also, and I think we're not striving towards a world where everyone has an integrative worldview, for example. I think really I
Mm-hmm.
believe in coexistence and difference and diversity, and also in the power actually of different perspectives to, yeah, to strengthen each other and to also help us actually solve complex problems, for example. But if you're talking about this more integrative worldview, integrative narrative, or integrative perspective, I think it is really a larger, it is kind of a meta narrative that has an ability to hold a lot of different interpretations, but that shares, um, yeah, certain universal features, and where we maybe
Mm-hmm.
also see a return, right, to, for example, indigenous worldviews, like the idea that this whole universe is mysterious and alive and sacred.
Yeah.
Well, this one thing I feel very strongly about that um, I I experience to be true, and I experience to be deeply meaningful, and I also understand as a way that offers us a pathway in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? From that understanding, a lot of things can line up in a certain way. Um, but how you that sacredness, for example, how you exactly understand that, there's a
It's an
plethora.
open question in a way. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
in a plethora of possibilities that hopefully can, what you talked about before, really include and appreciate a lot of different
Yeah.
worldviews, religions, perspectives.
I,
Um,
I love the symbolism of your hands opening up. Like that's also for me like the new narrative. It's a narrative of wholeness that can hold
yes,
the complexity of the world we are living in, but
yeah,
like like the source being wholeness or oneness.
yes,
Oneness not only in terms of beingness, oneness, but really in terms of becoming, of
hmm,
recognizing that we are part of this big ongoing process that is evolution, that is evolutionary, that is complexifying, that is in my opinion goes towards more beauty, truth, and goodness, and just to
yeah,
see that this is what we are part of and where we can play a role in.
yes, yeah. It's like growing into this oneness, as I hear you describe
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not a settled business. It is something we are called to participate in,
yeah,
and that
yes,
cannot happen
exactly.
without our participation, right?
Yeah, 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 it's not a finished thing that we want to
No,
connect to.
not
It's
lying there waiting for us to discover. No, we're
no.
actually, yes, we are
Yeah,
co-creating. We are,
we
yeah,
are co-creating, and that for me gives so much purpose and meaning that the meaning crisis goes out of the window.
right. Yes, yes, exactly. Well, and that this is also, I think, why the narrative, and maybe also, yeah, why the narrative is actually really important. Also because, like, a lot of young people, for example, and not just young people, are very desperate, right? And
Yeah.
for understandable reasons. And I think because there is not that bigger, that is, at least not in the mainstream. But when you can connect to a, yeah, a bigger sense of meaning and of that what this life is about, and what you are here to do,
Hmm.
you may be able to contribute your unique gifts, your to to contribute to this larger unfolding that in the end, should benefit everyone and
Hmm.
all beings. Yeah,
Yeah,
that gives some new perspective and hope.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
On a totally different note, what do you think about AI?
Oh,
Small question.
yes.
Small question towards the end.
Hmm. Yeah, super interesting question though. I have not professionally thought as much about AI as I want to do, but I'm working partially with it myself. Yeah, so what do I think about AI? In some sense, I think that AI is amplifying so much of what we have already spoken about,
Hmm.
that it, as far as it was not completely clear to us yet, that it will really bring home that, yeah, we need to develop our humanness, right? We need to invest in our humanness, and
Yeah.
that our humanness is something so precious and so unique that, and that a robot never compete with that AI with all that it can do. Yeah, so I am also one of those people that believes that AI cannot be conscious, will not be conscious. Um, but I don't have whole philosophically sophisticated arguments for that. I've read some things on it, but that's my kind of intuition that
Hmm.
yeah, and that there's something very unique about consciousness in general, and maybe about human consciousness in specific. And that AI will show us more and make us more acutely aware of the value that this is also something we have taken for granted. And then we create these robots that can do so much of what we can do and can do it actually better, and but cannot actually get to the heart of who we are, cannot truly feel, does not have truly skin in the game.
Yeah, yeah,
Not care. Does ultimately not care.
yeah. I totally agree with you. And I see so many tendencies out there in the AI sphere that try to prove something different. And so
Mm,
many people that start to have relationships with their AI bot that I find scary and uh, yeah, difficult to deeply understand. And again, kind of a testament to where humanity is right now. We seem to be at the crossroads where we really have to find out how we can come back, as you say, to our humanity and recognizing our humanity. But I cannot say that I right now believe that this is what is happening, that because of
no.
we all see much more of our humanity. I feel like we will have to go through a process of
Yes.
actually recognizing that and
Which will
come back
probably,
to our deep human values.
yes, which will probably involve more destruction. Uh,
That might well be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I recently listened to it's a beautiful film with Zachary Stein,
Yeah.
who
The
also.
new AI doc or
No, I forgot the title and I forgot who
yeah.
made it. I can share the link later for
Yeah.
listeners. But in this he talks about attachment hacking, which is so it's
Mm.
compares actually, we know now that what social media did to us,
Yeah.
to frame it that way, it hacked our attention and our ability to pay
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
And we see that it has had incredible impacts and mostly negative in our world,
Yeah.
right? It's yeah, it's in some sense destroyed our ability to pay attention and to direct our own intention, to have a sense of control over our own intention. That
Yeah.
people are scrolling and then time disappears. They come out feeling like shit. Where did
Yeah.
that time go? I didn't want to do that, but I just disappeared. I got sucked in. So your attention got hacked. And now what they're saying is that AI is what it's doing is actually attachment hacking. So it hacks into our, and this is what you were talking about, right?
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Relationships with AI, treating AI as human, which is
Yeah.
because we are being deceived. And I know this is when I'm talking with AI that I think like, oh, there's like unconsciously, it's almost unavoidable that you think that this other person, this other being cares.
Yeah.
But upon reflection, I realized like it doesn't care.
No, no, it doesn't really.
It doesn't
And
care. It doesn't. It
and
doesn't.
sometimes I kind of play with it by just changing a little bit of the prompt and it goes in a totally different direction. It's so we can manipulate it, and with that we can recognize how manipulative it is with us, because depending on how you prompt, how you interact,
Yeah.
it's a different person,
Yeah.
which just tells you everything you need to know about
Yes. Yeah.
what this actually is.
At the same time, I also think there's amazing potentials, right? So,
Yeah.
but it demands a lot of maturity, I think,
Yeah.
to work with it well and to actually be able to leverage these potentials.
Yeah.
And here we see the problem in society that we invest this unbelievable amounts of money into AI, but not in, yeah, developing our human maturity, which is actually
Hmm.
needed to handle these technologies and also to leverage their potential for the good.
Yes, exactly. No, I totally
So,
agree.
yes, big, big questions. And for me, watching this whole AI revolution, I feel only yeah, I feel only more strongly about the work I'm doing, about how we need to really, yeah, develop kind of worldview literacy, or what I call
Yeah.
deep worldview literacy, which is not just intellectual knowledge, which
Yeah.
is really like interpersonal and emotional and emotional regulatory skills and reflective skills to engage with our own worldviews and with other worldviews more constructively. And we need to, yeah, we need to develop our humanness.
Yeah.
And this
I
uh,
totally agree.
is only becoming more clear for me. This is what we need to be doing.
Yeah, very much so. Well, that's wonderful. Is there anything else you would like to add from your work that would fit our conversation, or do you feel we covered a lot?
Yeah, let me see. There's always something more. No, that was a lovely conversation though, and we did cover a lot. Yeah. Um, yeah, this I kind of maybe that's also a nice note of hope or so, or of optimism to end on. But I feel so strongly that um yeah, we are in the midst of all this complexity and all this crisis, and it's daunting and heartbreaking, I think, to live through this time. I find it really, heart-shattering on a regular basis, just reading the newspapers and holding all of this. Um, and yeah, maybe therefore I love I love this quote by Bill Mollison. I don't know if you know it. It's somewhere he's saying, while the problems of the world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And so he's the founder of permaculture, and he talks about,
Oh, yeah,
like ecological solutions, and there's so much we can do in that domain.
yeah,
I think like I have nature and how we produce our food and how we relate to the living worlds. We didn't really touch so much on that, but it's, I think an incredibly important part of the transition that is needed.
yeah,
Yeah, my focus is worldview and cultural, and but so that's an important part of it. But yeah, that same principle of these simple solutions, because that was his insight with that
yeah,
actually permaculture is quite simple in many ways. It has
yeah,
some
yeah,
basic principles, and it creates completely different perennial food systems that can maintain us in a way that also nourishes nature and solves many of our ecological and biodiversity problems. But I think the same is true in the cultural realm, that we have that there's actually, yeah, somewhat simple things that we can do.
yeah,
Like we talked about the listening, in some sense, this is the simplest, not necessarily always easy, but
yeah,
it's the
yeah.
simplest thing in the world. If we can leverage these simple but powerful solutions, yeah, I think we can really start to make change.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's the simplicity beyond the complexity. No, it's like
Yes.
there is a sense that the simplicity is there.
Yeah, and it's beyond the complexity, not before the
No,
complexity.
it's beyond the complexity
Yeah.
exactly.
It can hold the complexity. Yeah.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. Thank you so much, Annick. This
Yeah.
was wonderful.
Thank you so much. What a lovely initiative of yours. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.